Are you exhausted from carrying it all and realizing something has to change? What if 4 days could give you the clarity and breakthrough that normally takes 6 months of counseling? The Soul Care Intensive program is open to anyone ready to do deep, focused work. In just 4 days, you'll complete comprehensive assessments, receive 8 hours of therapy, a follow-up report of the sessions, tools, and aftercare options, all in a distraction-free environment built for real change. This experience is especially powerful for couples working through marital strain, communication breakdowns, or years of unresolved tension. If you're tired of surviving and ready to get unstuck, don't wait. Check out emerge.org/intensives today. A Soul Care Intensive is for you when waiting is no longer working, because staying the same is no longer an option.
It's the XM Podcast with licensed mental health therapist Matthew Kanabe.
Well, things can be hard. I know I have 2 little ones, and when my wife or I ask them to do something like clean their rooms or put their laundry away, they become very overwhelmed. But when we work with them and help them, they seem to do much better in completing the task. Well, life can be hard. And when we go through it together, it becomes a little bit more manageable. Today, our guest is sharing her story of adversity so that others can hear what she has overcome. And maybe it inspires them to keep pushing, or connect with a mentor, a therapist, a pastor, or a friend. Or possibly just gives them hope to those who feel like maybe hope seems far away. Please welcome to the show, Samantha Vitarella.
Well, Samantha, welcome.
Thank you.
It's so good to meet you in person. You and I have had a few opportunities to connect via email and then over Teams, and we got to meet in person today. And really grateful for you to be able to come here and share your story. And before we get into all that, if you wouldn't mind spending just a little bit of time and sharing a little bit about yourself so our audience can get an idea of who you are.
Okay, well, it's good to be here as well. I'm excited for this. So I really don't bring with me anything to promote. I don't bring with me any, organization to represent. I'm just a widow. I have 2 younger boys that I'm raising. I have an older daughter. And so we're just going through life and enjoying each day. I love to serve in our local church ministry, and that's pretty much it.
That's
just
good.
Regular old gal.
And are you from this area originally? Like, where are you from?
So originally I am from around this area, so a little more south, small town. And then I reside in Cleveland right now. So
good. And some of the things you've done for work and...
So actually I mostly have worked just administrative jobs, but I do also have a photography business on the side. It's a creative outlet, something that I really enjoy doing. And so, yeah.
That's great. So you and I were connected essentially through a therapist at Emerge, and I got to spend a little bit of time with you to kind of hear a little bit about your story, and that's what we're really going to share today. And one of the important things of the podcast that I've said time and time again is this is one of those podcasts that I think a lot of times people will listen to and they feel like they're on that island, and they feel like maybe I'm the only one that's ever experienced this and I feel like I'm all alone. And when you were sharing your story, I was just like almost overwhelmed because you've been through a lot. There's no question. And what the listeners won't know, but I do, is you did a really great outline of your experiences. It's 2 pages of life adversities that you've navigated and had to deal with, and we're going to kind of get into that. First off, I'm grateful that you were able to put that together, but I also got to say it was hard to read. Mm-hmm. It was when I received the email and I started just going through it, I'm like, I would say 1 or 2 of those bullet points was probably enough for a person. I think there's like 13 or 14 bullet points on there where I'm like, Lord, this is too much for one person. I'm grateful that you're willing to share that. So I'm just going to kind of turn it over to you and let you, as best you can and as comfortable as you want to be, just kind of share your story wherever you'd like to start it, because I think our audience needs to hear it.
Sure. Well, I guess I would start probably from the beginning, and we can maybe move on from there. Mm-hmm. So I really just wasn't raised in a Christian home. I'll start off with that. And I did, however, know the confusion and the effects of sin due to some of the experiences that I grew up with. So I really don't know my biological father, but my mom did get married when I was about a year old, and he was very good to me. However, I grew up during those younger years, very young years, and I have memories of him hurting physically my mother. I remember, seeing the police at our house, feeding my mom and talking to her through locked doors, and just wondering what was going on. He was also an alcoholic, and so that obviously played into some of his behavior, I would assume. And so when I was about 5 years old, he actually passed away in a boating accident on Lake Erie. And that left my mom with myself, and at that time she had 2 more children, so my 2 younger brothers. And life had changed quite a bit after that. So we would move forward to kind of preteen years. We moved around a little bit, and around when I was 12 and 13 years old, at that time I was really taking a lot of care for my younger brothers. My mother was a single mother. I believe she did the best that she could. I watched her grieve the death of her husband and also parent us children, just not with a lot of hope. And she was not in the house a whole lot due to one thing or another, sometimes work, sometimes other things. And during that time, when I was about 13 years old, we had some neighbors around. We lived in an apartment, and there was a much older man who had taken advantage of the situation, if I can just put it that way. Yeah. And I just really had no idea what to do, and I just stayed silent until a few months later. There were signs that had shown that I was expecting a little one. And so...
And you were 13.
I was 13.
Wow.
So the process was a little bumpy, of course. There was an opportunity to possibly put her up for adoption, and a lot of people suggested many other options. And at that time, I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. But I did end up keeping my daughter and raising her.
At 13, you were able to make that decision.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
So I was actively looking at adoption profiles. And again, I really didn't know where to turn or who to talk to. I thought maybe that would be best, but in my heart, I just didn't want that. And it wasn't until my mom said that she would help me until I graduated high school, and watch my daughter while she was in school. And that was in the hospital when I had her, just 25 days before I turned 14 years old. She told me that, and I thought, I'm ready. I'm going to do this.
Were there any repercussions to the older guy?
There were very minimal, but there were.
There were.
So, yeah. So, and so from that point on, life was busy. I went to school, and I worked some, and, I also helped at home. And it would probably be almost a year. My daughter was almost a year old when there was someone who invited us to a local church. And like I said, I had kind of been in and out. I've heard about Jesus. I knew about things, but I didn't really understand anything. So I went, I loaded my daughter up onto a church bus in a carrier and went, and I heard about Jesus, and I trusted him as my Savior at that time. I've never really looked back, although I did not know how to really grow as a Christian, I would say. So, so for many years, I just was out and about and doing my own thing. And it wasn't until, well, if I could back up for just a moment, while I was not going to church, my daughter started to go. And in the, I believe, 8 years that I was, let's say, away from the Lord, my mom and my brothers, my cousins, and my daughter all started to be faithful. They started to learn about the Lord, and really the Lord changed their life. But it wasn't until my daughter was about 8 years old, I believe, and she asked me to come to an Easter service. I didn't take her that day. I was in no place to really take her. I felt I couldn't come to church with the position that I was in, which I now know is wrong. I could have come at any time.
Was that a guilt, or what was?
Might have been. I think it was just maybe the choices that I was making. I felt like I had to be perfect to go, and all of those things that really aren't true. And so I remember one day I pulled over into a car wash bay, and I just remember just kind of surrendering to the Lord. And so, during all of that time, I took full responsibility for having my daughter. I really didn't talk to anybody about it very much. I tried to kind of maybe stuff it down, if you would say. But she was really my focus, and there was a lot I knew not to do. But
Can I ask? I mean, so 25 days before you're 14, you're still in junior high at that point, right?
yes.
Okay, so how do you navigate junior high life and high school as a mom? It's hard for me to even imagine balancing life, raising a kid. Like it's almost beyond me to understand. Like it's
it's a little beyond me too.
Yeah, right.
It took a lot. I actually was tutored for my first quarter of my 9th grade year.
Yeah.
And then I went back to school, and you have living proof of what happened in your life. And I was very grateful. People were not rude to me. People were not at
That's
school.
Amazing. At
school, they were not rude to me. I have had a lot of people pass judgment and make comments over the years. Otherwise, but yeah, I just very much stayed focused. I knew that I didn't know much being 13 years old.
No, I have an
14.
8-year-old, and that's not far from 13,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to wrap my head around going,
Exactly.
I can't even imagine,
Yes. And so I really just focused on giving her FaceTime when I could, and just working very hard to finish school and save up and
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, being 14 years older than your child, I mean, I know siblings, people who have siblings that are that distance apart. Like, and I know this is just the beginning of your story. We'll get into adulthood, but like, how did you learn how to be a mom? Like, there's so much complexity to one thing. It sounds like an older guy took advantage of a 13-year-old girl. Yeah. I mean, you're navigating a trauma there.
Right.
But then the next stage of that is, well, now I have a lifelong responsibility, and God bless you, one, for not going through an abortion, and adoption I think is unbelievable, but I keep this little one, or at that time she's probably not a little one anymore, but I just how did you figure that out? Like,
we'll be right back.
LPC, LPCC, IMFT. LISW, PhD. If you don't know what any of those are, go ahead and hit the 30-second fast forward button and enjoy the podcast. But if you know someone or happen to have those credentials, then Emerge might be your next career path. If you're seeking to join a team that provides authentic Christian counseling and utilizes advanced modalities, then apply today at emerge.org/careers and join us in the battle to help people find freedom and rest.
So, I really don't think I did. And at this point in my life, and where the Lord has brought me, I can look back and say, oh, yes, it was all God.
Yeah.
And I did truly believe that. But, my daughter is now 27 years old. Mm-hmm. Her age gap between her and her siblings, the smallest age gap is 15 years.
Right.
And so
that makes sense. I think, just trying to figure out how to parent when you're not even an adult yourself, like that's 14 is not even close. It's the threshold for a 16, 17, 18-year-old. Even though we consider 18 to be adulting, the 13, 14 years old is beyond me.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I feel less qualified now having younger ones, and I'm, in my early 40s than what I did then. I really just worked very hard. I mentioned a moment ago that I really knew a lot of things not to do. Mm-hmm. I love my mother. She's in heaven now, but she really did do the best that she could with what she knew. Mm-hmm. And it was very difficult for her. Like I said, I watched her go through that grieving with no hope. Mm-hmm. And I watched that affect some of her behaviors and the way that she parented. And a lot of it was not good. So when I had my daughter, there were a couple of things that I thought to myself. I thought, I'm going to listen to her, and I'm going to look at her. Mm. And I think maybe those are things that subconsciously I knew that I needed. Mm-hmm. But I remember thinking those things. And so that's all that I really had to go on. Mm-hmm. I'm going to listen to her, and I'm going to look at her. Yeah. And I will say that the Lord's done an amazing work in that way. My daughter, like I said, is 27 years old. She just got married to a man who really loves the Lord. She serves in ministry, but she just has a heart for people, and she just sees people. And I'm really thankful to the Lord for that. I'm thankful for the young woman she is. So,
praise God for that.
Oh, yeah.
That's nothing short of a miracle.
It is. Yes.
So you kind of make it through high school. What does life look like as you actually become an adult, even though you were you had adult responsibilities for many years before adulthood. What did life look like then after?
It was just a lot of work. Mm-hmm. I think I had become very accustomed to working and going to school. I did go to college for a little bit until I realized that at a certain point I needed to shut some things down and just be there for my daughter, because ultimately that was the most important thing for me in my life, as I just really wanted to make sure that I was a present mom. Mm-hmm. And so, it just looked a little bit like living in the world, I would say. Just really just doing my own thing, making decisions that weren't going to help me, but they were somewhat numbing to the past, and the responsibility that I felt. So I think that there was a long time, a few years in there, especially after high school graduation, where I really just wanted to not face the responsibility anymore. I became very tired and worn down, and it caused me to just try to find refuge in the wrong places. Yeah.
So, where does life then take you after high school? Mm-hmm. I totally get, and you and I kind of talked a little bit before we were recording, the idea and the concept of like, I just want to keep the past in the past. I want to suppress, and we'll kind of get to what you've done with some of these things, but I want to continue kind of in your timeline. Talk to me a little bit then what happens after that.
Yeah, so again, just a little bit of a muddled few years, just trying to do all of that. And then finally, I made a decision, and it had to be the grace of God. Like I said, I pulled over into that car wash, gave my life to the Lord. I cut off ties and started making decisions and felt like that was right for me. I started to get involved in some ministry. I changed my work schedule to be with my daughter and to have more consistency. A few years after that, I actually met my husband, who has now gone on to be with the Lord. I met him at church. And then at the beginning of that marriage, I mean, it was wonderful. But I'll tell you, about a month after we got married, I wheeled him into a doctor's office. He was having a lot of neurological symptoms. He could not walk well on his own, could not talk very well. And it was a mystery for many years. A lot of ups and downs and a lot of medical appointments for most of the marriage. So,
and at that point, he was young.
Yes.
I mean,
so he was 30 years old.
Yeah, which would be pretty abnormal for a 30-year-old to have some of the symptoms of some of these things. And so you got married, and then relatively quickly his health just declines.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you guys, from what I remember you describing to me, that's kind of how you lived for a while. Is that?
Yeah, it was very much up and down. I would say we would, speak to a doctor, and he would get a little better, and he'd always get to maybe 80 to 90%, as long as he could walk on his own, as long as he could work. And my husband was decently fit man. He was active. So it was very cumbersome to walk through that with him, to take care of him.
Did you guys ever find out what was causing whatever these ailments were?
Yes and no. Since his passing, I'm really not 100% sure that we ever found everything out. So, but it started out with like some autoimmune things, and then we ventured into some holistic avenues, and he really got better around 2016. He was really at 100%. And we never really worked with a diagnosis. We just worked with him and went that route, and he did so well. So, we thought, we should be good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So yeah, he was sick, and that was difficult. In between there, I mean, we had more children, which was a large matter of conversation. But with each doctor and how he had gotten better and how up and down it was, we just trusted that we could go that route, and I'm very thankful, obviously, for my kids.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And how was it? Bringing your daughter into a relationship, and I'm sure he was her stepdad at that point. Like, how did that go? That whole process.
Well, it went really well until you look back at the wedding photos and you see her face.
Oh, really?
And we joke about that.
Because it'd been her and Mom for a while.
Yes, we joke about that for a long time. We joke about that, but she really did well. I think, like, bringing that in, one thing that amazed me is that they were very similar in some of their thought processes, and we all just kind of fit together. I feel like the Lord brought us all together. And so it was an adjustment for certain. it was very unusual to have a man around the house. But,
How old was she when you got married?
So she would have been, I'm not sure why I don't know this.
That's okay. Roughly.
About 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pre-adolescent, early
Yeah.
adolescence,
Yeah.
which is a difficult time
Yes, it is.
to begin with.
Yeah.
It's one of, I think, the biggest transitional, stages of life. And, I joke, that, and again, this is when you were pretty close to having a child, 12, 13, 14 years old. One of the things I share with people all the time, it's like that 13, 14, 15-year-old age is one of the most awkward stages that we go through in life. And so what we do is we take all of these 13, 14, 15-year-olds and we put them under one building, call it junior high or early high school, and just to have them try to figure it out. And it's such a difficult time.
Yes, it is.
On top of the fact then it had been you and her for the first 12 years of her life, and now we're inviting this guy in, and I would imagine it wasn't terribly long later that some other siblings start showing up. I mean, that's a lot of transition.
Oh, it certainly is. I just remember what I went back to when I was very young. I wanted to look at her and I wanted to talk to her and let her talk to me. I would listen to her. And I think that I have two boys who are younger now, and raising a girl versus raising boys has been quite different in some areas. But there was just a lot of talking, very open.
Good.
And I was always very thankful that she felt safe to air any grievance. And that somehow I was given the strength and I believe wisdom. Obviously, I believe that to come from the Lord, but I was given that to be able to receive that and not, fight back at some of it, to just let her speak. So there wasn't a ton of grievances, but in the same sense, if I can say it, I was also her parent.
Yeah.
And we had prayed and we had spoken about this before anybody came along. And so being able to remind her of those things as we're walking into this new transition was invaluable.
Yeah.
Because we had something to point back to, something to reference. And that was very, very helpful, I think, in the transition.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, obviously you'd mentioned that your husband has passed. As much as you're comfortable sharing, what transpired from, you find out all these medical issues. It seems like, I think you said in 2016, we're back at 100%. Obviously something changed. What was the trajectory of, hey, I think we made it. I think we're good. We're maybe in a season where, things are going well and good future. What happened there? Yeah,
well, obviously when he had gotten better and he felt like, he could work well, and he always worked as much as he could. I mean, as exhausted as he was, but at times it wasn't quite safe for him to. Boy, he just hit the ground running. And he ended up going back to school, getting an associate's degree and changing jobs. And that's really kind of where we landed. We thought, wow, thank you, Lord. Like, here we are. Like, we get to just move on with life. And it was actually interesting when 2020 came and COVID hit and everybody thought, oh, no, we're indoors. And we just looked at each other as a family and we thought, that's how we've lived, because we stayed home with him. We stayed a tight-knit family unit, other than when I had to work or something. And so I'm not exactly sure what happened, because he had gone over every medical test in the world. There was really no warning to his passing. So he had some shortness of breath for some time, and he had been seeing pulmonology and cardiology and had every test done. And he ended up going to work one morning, and probably around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, I stopped getting responses from text messages. And then as that day went on, I wasn't getting anywhere with him. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't hearing from him. And I didn't want to be the pesky wife.
Yeah.
So I didn't call his work. He hadn't been working there that long, and so I didn't really want to bother him until, his plan that evening was to take one of my boys out. He would take them out alternating, and they were just waiting and waiting. And when it was 15 minutes past his time to get off work and he wasn't home yet, I knew something very wrong had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had essentially just had a heart attack while he was working. And his job, he would travel to appointments.
I see.
And so he was not with anybody, and he was not around anybody. And so it was very sudden. It was very unexpected.
Yeah.
Outside of some shortness of breath that really yielded no answers. So it was the Lord's time for him.
If you don't, how did you find out? Like, obviously he didn't come home from work. At that point, he's just missing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you even find where he was, or?
So essentially I did end up going to his work. I did end up talking to some of the people that I knew. And they were very helpful. Some of them were able and had credentials in different fields to be able to help try to track down like a missing person or
Right.
Check different counties. And they really directed me. The words to me when I was on the phone with him is, would you like to report him missing or do you want me to? And so at that time, we did get the police involved. And then we searched for a few hours. And the time always escapes me because I always want to say 7 o'clock, but I think it was later. I had called some friends and we had some people there, and I'm thankful for that. I had a really good friend who was helping with my boys. So when we got the knock on the door from the sheriff and coroner's office, my boys were tucked away in a bathtub and they didn't have to see that.
Yeah.
And so then they gave me the news. So
I'm so sorry. I mean, I really am. Did you? I mean, you must have had a gut feeling something. I mean, you knew something
Yes.
was wrong from the time he stopped responding.
yes. Yes.
I can't imagine that knock at the door, especially when you know your husband's missing.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine I know what that knock means.
I didn't think anything
Oh, really?
official.
Yeah.
I'm a very, it's not something until it's something type person.
Yeah, good.
So when I saw the sheriffs walk in, I thought, okay, something's definitely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But they never really got the words out. The sheriffs introduced themselves, and they were two. And then the third person introduced themselves and said they were from the coroner's office.
Yeah.
And that was the full wave, shock, just heart gut-wrenching
Yeah.
blow. So that was really that impactful moment. And they had, a few other questions and stuff because we really didn't know what happened. You
Right.
know, I didn't know that he was on the verge of having a heart attack.
Yeah.
So
That's really difficult. I can't imagine how your kids responded to that. How have they been doing with the loss of their dad?
right. So they've been doing good, and I include all three of them. At that time,
Yep.
my daughter still lived at home.
Mm-hmm.
And, children are amazing in the sense that they really don't have a filter.
Mm-hmm.
If they feel safe enough, they'll come out with it. And so we did deal with a lot. I mean, my youngest one feels very heavily about the fact that his dad didn't come home. and it was their night to go out. And that's something that still affects him. You know, you deal with, you know, children wanting to just run away from the problem. You deal with sitting with them in the driveway because they want to run away and just holding them while they're just mad. You deal with them saying things to you like, if God is so good, then why would he take Dad? Yeah. Or if God could raise himself if Jesus could raise himself from the dead, why wouldn't he just do that for Daddy? And so I feel like they've done well. And I'm very thankful. I'm very, very thankful that through the process, they have felt safe enough to address some of those hard things. Yeah. Now, I do have one who is going to be 13 in a couple months, and you can tell he pushes it down a little bit more these days. But he's always thinking about it. And so walking my children through and beside them in the grief has been probably like at one of the top number one things of hardest things that I've gone through out of whatever list I could compile for anybody. Yeah. And so I think all three of them, you know, have learned to take one day at a time. They've learned that it's okay to cry. They've learned that it's okay to ask God questions. Yeah. They've learned that it comes suddenly sometimes and we can't always control it. Yeah. That just wave of grief. So they've done well. We just passed a 3-year mark of my husband's passing. And I think that you can see the growth and the healing, and for that I'm thankful for.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I wanted us to kind of get to is the growth and the healing. If you don't mind, I'm going to recap real quick. And starting out, you never met your birth father. And then your mom remarries, and at 5 years old, you go through a very significant loss as your stepfather passes. At 13, it sounds to me, and I'm going to use this word, you tell me if I'm wrong, you were groomed by a predator. And that then resulted in a pregnancy. I can't even imagine what is going through a 13, 14-year-old's head at that point, trying to keep it together, making sense of the world. As a mom, like we just talked about a few minutes ago, you're just trying to make sense of the world as a 13, 14-year-old kid. You add that to it. You go through the rest of junior high, high school, early adulthood. It sounds like you're trying to figure it out, and all of a sudden a introduction of faith comes in the picture, and you meet a guy, you get married, medical issues start happening. Those seem to come to a place where it's like maybe we found our, a little bit of peace and a little bit of normalcy, and then not terribly long later, he passes away. I hope I did that justice, because it's like, it's a lot. So my point in doing that is one, for you and I to be able to have the conversation, but also for the listener to kind of go, okay, what do we do with that? And as I explained before, it's like, one or two of those bullet points is enough, but there's a lot there. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, which I think would be beneficial, is what are some of the things that you've been able to do, especially in the last 3 years, that you would feel like, I'd want somebody to hear this.
Sure. Well, I would say, especially in the last 3 years, I've become this big fan of facing what we go through. Yeah. Of being able to sit in it, of being able to see it, to recognize it. And that's something that I've learned. I've had to go and walk through experiences of the past. But I've also come to a point after everything that's happened, everything that you listed, the things that we talked about, and we could talk about some more things, more experiences, God just brought me to a point where it's like, you hold on just a moment. We're just going to sit here for a minute. And I really embraced that in my own grief. But I realized in my own grieving my husband that there was other grieving to do, that there were other things that maybe I pushed down, maybe I wanted to run from at one point, that I needed to really revisit. And I would say for the listener, the best way to go through it is to really actually go through it, not to try to hop over it, not to try to, go around it, because it's not really going to work out well. And so that would be what I would kind of shout from a rooftop as far as somebody going through something.
If you don't mind me asking, because I think it's really beneficial, I'm in agreement. I think when we look at the book of Peter, and he's talking about the fire and that you are such a precious metal, but then going through the fire is a refining, and you will be something even greater on the other side. I look at that fire as life's adversities, and a lot of times facing our fear or facing our trauma or facing the things that we don't want to do, and God's going, I want to walk through this with you. But I think sometimes we see that fire and we're like, I don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
I want to dance around it. I'll go over it. I'll go under it. I'll go around it. But the problem is that I've noticed therapeutically is it doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't.
It follows you, and a lot of times it compounds. And so you take one traumatic experience that goes unprocessed, unaddressed, and then maybe life brings you another one. Well, that doesn't mean you have two separate ones. It means they start building upon each other. And I know that in the therapeutic experience I've had with clients, a lot of time there's a fear of going, I don't want to relive that. I don't want to feel. I want to be numb. I want to avoid. I've had a lot of clients that, I would say, have fallen into addiction because it's a numbing of all of these things. What practically for you have been some things that you were going, you know what, now that I realize facing these monsters, these life experiences, what were some of the things you would say, okay, this is what that means? We can say these things, but what does it mean?
Sure. So I'm a big believer in what the Bible calls lament. And really just kind of sitting there, and you can air your grievances, but to really truly feel them as well. Yeah. To take time to write it out. But the interesting thing about lament is it's not just revisiting, just looking at that. It's not just sitting through it and staying there. It's then turning it into a form of worship. So couple that with so that would be a very practical thing to do. And some people think, oh, well, that just sounds a little too easy, or that just sounds like it's not going to work. But we do get scared of the fire. We do want to quench it with other things. We do want to hop around it. Yeah. But when you can fully sit there and whether it's just crying it out, writing it out, write exactly how you feel, even in like a therapeutic setting, just speaking to somebody and walking through those things with them, until you can see them and you can see where God is or was during that time. And you feel safe going back there and revisiting that. I think along with that, something that's really helped me in the faith realm is just learning, knowing, and recognizing who God is, his attributes, but also reckoning those things to be true in my life and my circumstances. Yeah. So when I can go back and revisit that, I can see he was there all along. Yeah. He's had a plan all along. Yeah. He means well for my life. And so those are things that sound a little fluffy, if I'm honest. Yeah. but being willing to put in the hard work of visiting those places, of recognizing the truth in those places and facing them is a pathway to healing.
Yeah. And again, as much as you're comfortable, are you able to share a little bit about your journey into therapy? Because you shared a little bit to me, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to get here. That
Sure.
Isn't always the path that most people take. I just would love to hear if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually was going through a lot of health issues. I had some things happening with movement and lots of pain and just weird things going on. And I went to a couple of doctors, and they said, we really just think that your body is reacting to all you've been through.
Yeah.
And they referenced a book, The Body Keeps the Score, and they said, we'd like for you to see someone for EMDR therapy. And they explained, it's not necessarily talk therapy. And so I chose, to find my own place. I wanted something that was maybe a place that was faith-based. And so that's how my journey started with that, is I knew after my husband passed, I was the only parent, and I needed to be the healthiest that I could for my children. And I had one shot to get this right, because it would affect not just myself, but my entire family.
How was that therapeutic journey for you? How was EMDR for you in navigating not one, not two, but this what we would call very complex trauma?
Sure.
Several different things. How was that journey for you?
Yeah, so when I first started, I thought I'd be coming for, maybe grief, because I just lost my husband shortly before. And what actually happened that surprised me is that it led to walking through and dealing with the fire of different traumas in my life, recognizing them for what they were, revisiting them. And I will say that that's not fun.
No.
But I was determined to do the work. Yeah. I was determined to walk through the fire, because I needed to get to a place of healing. And so it was a lot of walking through that, places that I didn't think I had to walk through anymore.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, well, we're past that. That was so long ago. It's not easy to do those things. But I would give a recommendation to anybody who thought that they really needed it, because the only way to get through it is to go through it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. People are probably getting sick of me saying this, and I'll continue to say it, though. What you just said, I think, is profound. It's not easy. Right. But the thing that I have noticed, and I'm not trying to be the advocate for therapy all the time, but I think in everybody's life at some point you probably need therapy. We don't come through this life unscathed. But I do think one of the things, and I keep saying it, is to do the hard thing is doing what you did. You know what the harder thing is? Not doing it and dealing with the consequences of what happens years later. Sure. Because the thing is unaddressed upheaval, unaddressed. I totally agree. It sounds like to me you were having somatic issues within your body, and your doctors are going, you look healthy. We believe you, but your body is responding to a massive amount of trauma that has been going on probably since early childhood. Sure. And it's manifesting itself because in one way or another, it's going to come out. And the thing is when it's unaddressed, when it's not in a therapeutic environment, it comes out in really bad ways. Like it can be very, very detrimental for people's careers, for people's relationships, for parenting. I mean, you can go on down the list. But I know it's hard. I've said this so many times. Nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, you know what? I should go to therapy today. what happens is life gets to a point where they have exhausted all of their resources and they're like, I don't know what else to do. I have to go see therapy.
Sure.
And I know that. I know when people get to me, it's not like, yeah, everything's great. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. But I think that it breaks my heart when I see people, because of a fear to address the difficult, living in a hypothetical prison for 10, 20, 30, and beyond years, when it's like, you know what, I know it's going to be hard. But what we can do in a session to 5 sessions, it will be painful, but I'd much rather that 5-week situation happen than the next 10 years.
Yep.
It's like, I don't love putting tension on my muscles, and it hurts sometimes to lift weights, but that's how they grow.
Yes.
It's kind of the same idea with the therapeutic process. And as I was sharing with you, it's like I've just had so many people sitting on the couch that you're sitting on, and I'm like, please, Lord, just give them the strength to want to go there, even though I know it's difficult and painful, because I think it will be so much better for them once they do.
Yeah, it will. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage and bravery to just speak something out loud, let alone really walk through it.
Yeah.
And so that would be a big encouragement for me, is go through it.
Yeah. Well, and I think when 2 or more are gathered, and I think when we are able to lament, I think that's a great point that you made. I work on forgiveness and grief, because those are 2 things, especially in the church, we talk about all the time, but no one knows how to do it.
Right.
Until you're in it, until you're in a real grieving situation, you're like, wait a minute, I don't know how to do this, and now I'm in it. But I think I have seen transformational changes in people's lives just going through verbally, within the presence of somebody else, saying, I forgive myself for da-da-da-da-da, because da-da-da-da. I forgive my mom. I forget. Sometimes it's a forgiveness of God, even though I know God has not sinned, but it's a letting go of that anger and frustration. I'm really grateful for all you shared. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't touch on, or anything else you'd like to leave our audience with?
When I was first approached about, the possibility of being on a podcast, I thought, well, I really don't have a whole lot to say.
I'm going to disagree.
And so
I'm going to firmly disagree with that.
I really just think, if I can just encourage people that there's hope, that yes, it's messy, but just keep going and, point people to Jesus, then that's all I have.
Samantha, I'm so grateful for you sharing your story. I'm also, just to be honest, I'm so grateful that you were like, it's time to face the fire.
Yeah.
Like it's time to walk through it. That is, it's such a difficult decision, but I think it is something that is so healing, and really grateful, because I know 100% that there are going to be people listening going, I know there's a fire in front of me, and I don't want to do it. But my hope and my prayer is that by able to be putting episodes out like this, it might be that one person that's listening and going, you know what, I connect with what Samantha has said. I feel her story. None of our stories are the same, but we're all connected. We go through, we have different narratives into our life, but there's a thread of, we experience loss, we experience adversity, and just really grateful for your time and sharing, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Samantha, for sharing so much of what you have gone through and how the Lord has been with you through so many life adversities. Life is full of grief, loss, issues with forgiveness, and often we get stuck. Samantha helps us to see how to continue to move forward, live by faith, and know God will use all things for His good, even the hard stuff. Well, thank you for listening. Until next time, or when our Savior comes, God bless. In a world where life can feel overwhelming, there's a place in the greater Northeast Ohio area where people find peace, hope, and healing. Emerge Counseling Ministries. For over 50 years, Emerge continues to be a trusted faith-based counseling center offering professional mental health care with a foundation in Christian values. Whether you're struggling with anxiety, depression, grief, or simply feeling stuck, our licensed counselors are here to walk alongside you. And the impact speaks for itself. 97% of our clients say they would recommend Emerge to a friend. 98% say they truly felt understood and heard by their counselor. And 84% report that their issue is improving through the care with us. At Emerge, you're not just a case number, you're a whole person. And we are here to support your journey towards healing and growth. It's confidential, compassionate, Christ-centered care. Learn more or schedule an appointment today at emerge.org. That's emerge.org. Remember, you don't have to walk alone.